Well, hey, everybody. I am very pleased to have Chris Kong and Darren Abrahams with me today from Glad Tidings Church in Victoria. And we're going to talk a little bit about multiplication again on this video and specifically some things that Glad Tidings is looking at in a very sort of pointed fashion. And so, guys, if you could just take a moment to introduce yourselves for those who don't know you. Maybe Darren, we'll start with you. And then, Chris, if you could introduce yourself as well.
Sure. Darren, I'm the Australian with a funny accent, as many would say. I had the privilege of serving and working at Glad Tidings for about 6 years under Pastor Andy and Lisa, and I'm in charge of church multiplication or church development for our campus and movement.
Great. Chris?
Yeah, Chris Kong, also at Glad Tidings for about a year and a half now. I am, for now, the resident church planter. And we're looking to continue our dreams to plant in Esquimalt as our next campus. So my work does revolve around that and working with Darren. He's a pretty good boss.
Great. So maybe you guys could, you sort of shared a little bit of your title and so on, but maybe you could share a little bit of your focus and roles, what they looked like pre-COVID-19. So Chris, why don't you go first?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so basically everything to do around launching our next expression of Glad Tidings Church, whether that was building team and creating the systems and structures, and then actually purchasing and getting all the things we need to launch in high school. So that was kind of my role pre-COVID, and we were right in the thick of it right when COVID hit. So, yeah.
Right, because your plan was to launch September 2020, correct?
That's right.
Yeah. And so can you say, do you have any idea when the launch will happen or if it's going to happen?
I can't say that right now. We are still in discussion about when we're going to be launching, but depending on restrictions and the amount of people who can meet, we are looking to have something localized there as soon as possible.
Great. Awesome. Darren?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. My role really is twofold. It's helping Chris with the current or the future church plant launch of Esquimalt. Also looking beyond that into the future in terms of following Pastor Andy and Lisa's visions of having 10 locations across Vancouver Island. So I get to look the honour of working with Chris to the future and also overseeing our current expressions that we have around Vancouver Island in Victoria, in Langford, and other with Ignite as well. So both and.
Great. Awesome. So, of course, Chris, you mentioned COVID-19 hits, everything changes. And when the provincial government placed restrictions on the size of our gatherings, almost every church I know had to go online because I used to pastor at Glad Tidings. I know that at least when I was there was about 1,800 to 2,000 actual butts and seats on any given Sunday over 4 services. In those days, it was 2 locations. So everybody had to get online. How did GT respond, and how did your roles change when all that happened?
Yeah, Chris, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. We had actually been on church online for quite a while. Years previous to me, we've been putting our services on there to limited success, I think. Darren, you can correct me if I'm wrong. But so we had already had church online activated, but we hadn't had the framework around, chat and hosts and prayer and moderating. All that thing was not cooked up when COVID hit. So we had literally just been using it as a passive platform to show our service to people really who were from our church, but maybe on holiday or that kind of thing. So that's where we came into the COVID. And then my role shifted from really launching the campus right away to almost a damage control. How do we get this up and running right away? Mm-hmm. And Darren, maybe you can speak to more about the systems and structures you set up previous to this that really did lend itself to this process.
Yeah, sure. One of my roles when I first started at GT was actually looking at church online. So it was a product that was already existing, had done for some time, and as Chris said, was already existing at GT in a passive form. But my role came in terms of putting a bit of legs to what was going on and creating some roles about how it could work in our environment. So I was really thankful, honestly, when Chris came on board, because he has the IT expertise to put behind the vision and make it work. So Chris and myself, together with some of our tech team, did some great work about a year ago in terms of how this could work. And then it was ready to go. It was still on the back burner, but when COVID hit, then we were able to really action what was already in place.
Mm-hmm. So you had a sort of a passive broadcast service online. People could log in. Again, probably not that different from a lot of other churches of your size and smaller for that matter. Mm-hmm. So what's different now compared to what you were doing then? How have you gone from passive to proactive or active?
Yeah. One of the biggest ways that we changed from passive to active was really putting a feedback mechanism in there of allowing people to engage through text, through typing on their keyboard, into what was happening, the services, the songs that were being played, what Pastor Andy or others were sharing on the platform, how it was responding to them, opportunities for live prayer as they had desire to. Those are really the big things that we released, and that Chris had a major part in actioning.
Mm-hmm. And then if I can build onto that, our production team is just simply phenomenal in responding to all of this and cutting worship together. And it has looked differently. We are a very worship-driven church, but we've had to pare it back a little bit because of distancing. But kudos to them. They're working actually more long hours to get all of our services stitched together in the correct way, and dealing with, getting cameras to people's houses and setting up, literal camera station at Andy and Lisa's place for a while there, before, when quarantine hit. So yeah, it's very kudos to them as well, but we had to work hand in hand with them to get all of this actioned quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I haven't talked to a pastor yet who said, "Oh, this whole COVID-19 thing has really reduced my workload. I've got nothing to do."
Well, we worked for 200 days in March, so.
Yeah, isn't that true? Yeah, it feels like it, doesn't it? So what have you learned about church online? What has been maybe some surprises? Like you go, "Oh, wow, that's not something I expected, but that's been really great." And on the flip side, what are some challenges with doing church online?
Yeah, would you like me to answer that one, Darren?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I think one of the most amazing things about church online is that we're in people's living rooms now, more than we ever have been. It's an opportunity to spread the gospel, to spread hope and joy and peace in a time that's so uncertain. So that's been really amazing, and seeing that has been phenomenal. One thing that we saw was our attendance online went way up from what it was before. We were probably getting around 200 to 400 people each week logging in online, passively viewing, and we went way up from there. I won't really share our number now, but unless you want me to. But yeah, I think we're seeing like upwards of 2,000-3,000 people each week logging on to our church online. So we're definitely seeing that as a bonus. We're reaching more people than we ever had. That's just devices. We don't know how many people are behind those. It could say they're all one person behind it. It's still amazing. Mm-hmm. If it's a whole family, we're reaching thousands more. It's kind of like Jesus when he fed the 5,000. Who knows how many were really there? Mm-hmm. So that's been good. And then I think one of the downsides is also attendance tracking, because we don't know. And people, when for instance, if there's a tech issue on church online, someone refreshes their screen and then that's another page view. Mm-hmm. So we're working on finding ways to understand the metrics better so that it doesn't lead us into panic, and then it also doesn't inflate our sense of importance at the same time. So that's been kind of one of the negatives for me and we're looking to remedy that as best we can. And if I can say one more thing on that topic is there's really no way to accurately measure attendance right now on any of your online platforms. So that's really where we have to shift our focus away from purely the numbers into the quality and quantity of our social interactions that we're having with people online. I think that's so important right now.
So let me jump on that, Darren. I'm looking for an answer from you on this one. Sure. Can you have authentic and genuine community online?
Len, maybe the jury's still out on that one. I think people, different personality-wise, will understand and express themselves in different ways, and engage in different ways. I'm thinking watching at home with my family, for example. I've got 2 teenagers now, and they won't necessarily stand there and sing and get engaged in terms of what's going on just because of their personality, and then that makes me feel a bit weird about it too. So I think people engage in different ways, but what we want to provide is the opportunity and the framework and the tools, saying it's almost like we give a gift to someone and say, the gift inside is for you. Please open, please unwrap, please use what's there. So we're doing everything that we can. We feel that's our responsibility to be able to do. What people take and do with that, that's really their choice. But we certainly are praying for that, definitely.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask, so the day is going to come, hopefully sooner rather than later, but as of today, none of us know, where we can gather en masse again. And I think if anything has happened over this pandemic, we've come to value our the opportunity to engage with one another personally, perhaps more so than we ever have.
Agreed. Yeah.
So when we have the opportunity to gather again in large groups, is church online for you guys, is it gonna go away, or is it gonna go back to a passive approach, or what are you thinking in those terms?
Yeah. Chris, do you want to hit that one?
Yeah, I think it's here to stay for us. We've been able to create systems where we're actually training new volunteers how to do, for instance, tech support. We're teaching them how to host and be prayer team. Our prayer team is actually mostly led by volunteers right now, which is amazing. So I think we would be, can I use the word foolish to let it go? Because it isn't a place of engagement for people who may not have ever stepped foot in the church, may not ever want to step foot in the church, but we can engage them online in a new and a fresh way, hoping one day we can actually convince them to come visit us in person.
Yes.
Right. So I'm asking both of you, and I'd love to get a response from both of you because I've been thinking a lot about this myself. I was going to say if you could look into your crystal ball, but there are probably people who would respond negatively to that metaphor.
We'll pretend you didn't say that.
So I didn't say that. If you could put on your prophetic mantle for a moment, what do you think the future of church looks like post COVID-19? What are you seeing down the road? I'd love to hear from both of you.
Yeah, Len, I'm definitely not a futurist. I don't do very well at looking too far down the road, but I guess what I'm hoping for is that the church is the church. What the church did before is what the church will continue to do both today and tomorrow. I think about the idea of being the bride of Christ, and I look at my bride, my beautiful wife, and I see what she does is she loves me, she honors me, she seeks to serve me, she takes care of our house, meaning our kids, and she looks to be a benefit to the community. I really hope that our church, and I believe that our church will continue to do that afterwards, that we'll honor the bridegroom, that we'll love the house, and that will be benefit to the community. Now, whatever form that looks like, I don't know. I know the what, I don't necessarily know the how. So whatever that means, I trust that we'll have the wisdom and the discernment to know, but I'm trusting that mission doesn't change.
Mm-hmm. Right. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I think I echo those sentiments from Darren, not being able to read the future, or know the mind of God. We do want to reach people. And I do think, however, though, that this has accelerated our ability to reach people online by an enormous factor. So that's for everyone involved. That's every church I see. We're all trying to do at least something online. And I think it's actually brought us forward in a good way into a place where we were maybe hesitant to go before because of, fear. I don't know how, I maybe not in the right age group to go online. I don't know how the technology, we don't have the money, we don't have the time, but we have time now, and we all have time to learn a new skill. So I think we're going to have amazing skills going forward to be able to reach this new generation of online people in a new way. And I think figuring out how to disciple those people is the job of the church in this next season. How do we love them? How do we make real connections with them? How do we eventually meet them in person if we can? All of those things are going to be so key coming up in the future. And I believe we are ready and we will rise to the task of doing that as the church because we have to. But the Great Commission isn't just going away because of COVID. So I'm excited. I'm honestly excited to see how we're going to respond as a church and then as the church together.
So that spurs another question for me, and that would be in terms of people putting their faith in Jesus, either renewing that commitment or doing that for the first time. I'm asking this question because I actually don't know. What are you seeing? Are you seeing responses that way? Would it be comparable to your live gatherings? Better, worse? Just curious to know.
Darren, do you know the exact numbers? I don't know our exact salvation numbers.
No, I can't say I do. It's probably speculation. Len, I would probably say maybe it's less than in person, would be my guess. And yet, I think it's very hard to measure the depth. For new Christians, it might be smaller, but the depth that we're looking at, I think, is going deeper in many ways. I hear testimonies from even Steph on our conversation this morning, our staff meetup, and what's happening behind the Sunday service doors is incredible. Just our phone connections that we're making with people, what's happening there is beautiful to see. We're looking now at the ones versus en masse, which is really neat.
And I think Easter, we had about 7 to 10 salvations on Easter. And I saw a post, I think it's Bobby Grunwald from Church Online posted a picture of 69,000 people coming to Jesus on Church Online alone on Easter weekend. So we're reaching people. We may not see all the seeds that we planted or the people who like put their hand up, but God is still being honored and glorified, and people are coming to know him in this season. It's so exciting.
Yes.
Who would have thought, like 69,000 people could get saved online? It's just phenomenal.
Yeah, that's one of the great things about Church Online. We don't just celebrate what we're doing at GT. We get to partake and celebrate what's going on across the globe, which is awesome. That's
amazing. That's amazing. So I know we're all sort of building the bridge as we cross the river. We're all learning as we, as we do this. But do you have any advice for other churches and leaders around Church Online?
Yeah, for me, I would say keep an open mind and just believe that your efforts are not wasted. We're still trying to advance the kingdom of God. The Holy Spirit is still moving us. He is still guiding us, even though it may be in an area we're not certain of. Maybe we're going into a new pioneering phase in Christendom, but it's still, God is still there on the throne with us, and he can give you the skills to get there. And I would say reach out to people who are doing it. Don't be afraid to call us and ask us, hey, how did you get this set up? What tech are you using? I have more than enough time right now, I hope I can say that, to maybe answer a few questions you might have. I can give you some time to talk about Church Online, and now is a great time for that. So that's what I have to say. I don't know about you, Darren.
Yeah, I think to that, Len, I would just say that, as Elisha said to the widow, use what's in your hands to do. This is not a season for comparison. It's a season for being resourceful with what you've been given. So do the best that you can with what you have, and know that God will bless that, whether you get to see it now or whether you don't, irrespective. Let's just use what we have.
That's great. Great encouragement from both of you. Thank you for that. If people want to get in touch with you guys, how can they do that? Chris?
Yeah, Chris at gt.church, CHRIS at gt.church. That's the best way to reach me.
Okay. How about you, Darren?
And email address the same, Darren, DARREN at gt.church.
All right. Well, that's pretty easy. So again, guys, thanks for taking a few minutes to share some of your insights and your experience. And we're excited with what God's doing at Glad Tidings on the island. And as you said, both of you said, really across the nation, our district, around the world, it's exciting. These are exciting and challenging days at the same time. Thanks for your input, guys.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for what you continue to do, Len, and championing PAOC and multiplication across the province and across the land.
It's good. Thanks, Len.